Welcome everyone here today for our first roundtable for GameBizz Latam, sponsored or hosted by BizzTalk. And today we are at our first roundtable. Our subject is how to monetize your game in Latin America. Really excited today to have some great speakers. We have Christian Desert, who is the CRO from Boa Compra. Thank you, Christian. Glad to have you here.
Roundtable.
Glad to be there.
Is how to monetize your game in Latin America.
Oh, getting some feedback there. Sorry. We also have Rodrigo Lanes, who's head of partnerships at Bemobi. Glad to have you here as well, Rodrigo.
Hi, Jason.
My name is Jason Schuster, and I'm the CFO from Bad Panda Games, but I'm also a partner here at BizzTalk, and I'll be facilitating today's roundtable discussion. So I'm really excited to be here. Before we get started, I'd also like to just throw out a special thanks to our event sponsor, who is Boa Compra. Thank you so much for sponsoring this event. And also to our event partners, our other event partners, Crazy Labs, Right Zero, and Serendipity Marketing. All right. What I'd like to do for these roundtables, especially since we only have just a few speakers, I would love it if Christian and you and Rodrigo would just take maybe 2 minutes to tell the audience who you are, a little bit about your background, and a little bit about what you're doing right now, just so that they have context during the discussion of kind of where your viewpoint is coming from, where your expertise is. I find that it usually helps the audience. Rodrigo, if you'd like to go first, since you're already unmuted, and then Christian, I'd love to hear from you, and then we'll kind of just dive into the topics.
Absolutely. Okay. So, well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rodrigo. I'm Brazilian. I'm 38 years old. I've worked in the telecom and IT industry for most of my life. Right now, I work for a company called Bemobi. We are an international company with agents based in Brazil. I'm partnerships and third-party products. And well, we work in a very specific model. We are a B2B2C company, and we provide digital services, mobile digital services to telecom operators around the world, mostly in emerging markets. And one of our main products is Apps Club, which is a subscription-based app store, pretty much like Google Play Pass or Apple Arcade. And I'm the person basically responsible for chasing new partners, bringing new content to the store, closing deals, making sure payments are happening properly, refreshing the content, and all things in between. So yeah, I'm passionate about technology in general and the mobile world because of, well, that's pretty much where all my experience lies.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Really glad to have you here today. Christian, how about yourself? Tell the audience just a little bit about who you are and your background as well.
Hi guys, well, thanks for receiving me today. We're glad to share and talk about games always. I'm originally French, but based now in Lisboa after some years in Silicon Valley working for a Brazilian company. So it's probably how the world is today. I guess my background more related to video games is been like for the last 15 years helping a publisher and game company, originally mostly PC game based, to embrace the digital movement or get out from the box to the download, and now very logically a lot into mobile. And this is for me for Boa Compra. Well, Boa Compra is part of PagSeguro. For the one who doesn't know or heard about PagSeguro, it's probably the biggest Latin America fintech today, with many different angles, extremely present in Brazil, and providing number of payments capacity from POS machine down to digital account. So serving merchant, but also serving now consumers. And more precisely, Boa Compra is definitely born in video games. And for the probably a little anecdote or story around it, Boa Compra actually born with a game called Tibia. And Tibia was giving like in-app purchase, or you had to basically, it was not even in-app, but I mean within the game you could purchase some coins, and it was impossible for Brazilian to do that unless they have a MasterCard or an American credit card. And that's how a kid, Christian Ribeiro, start actually by using his dad card. And then from that, he resell to friends and families and blah, 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 and becomes that. So it's really what we do today. We're helping any type of gaming company, not only games, but mostly games, to unleash the capacity of Latam by giving them the capacity to get processing locally. We probably will dive on that. That's it for now.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Christian. I appreciate that. I also wanted to just quickly to the audience before we dive into the first topic, the chat here, feel free to get involved into the chat. Speakers, whenever you're not speaking, if you want to engage with the audience in the chat, please feel free to do so. We've had in the past, we've had some really great discussions there, as well as just kind of speaking to each other, but feel free to be as active as you'd like in the chat. I encourage it. All right, getting started. Monetizing your game in Latin America. Now, I personally, I've been in the game space for a little over 3 years, and so I have some in that sense. I'm the CFO at our small studio. I have some experience in monetizing games, but I would say compared to both of you, I'm a little bit, the junior here. So I'm hoping to learn a lot. But I've noticed that depending on the region that you're working in, monetization works very differently. So for instance, how monetization strategies in the US tend to be different than they are in Europe versus Asia versus Latin America. So I would really love to hear just kind of your first little thoughts on what makes it different in Latin America when it comes to monetizing games. What's the biggest difference from, let's just say, the US? Go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, a few comments on that. Well, Latin America and emerging markets in general, they share a few common characteristics, right? I mean, credit card penetration, for example, is one of them, which is very low. And that basically prevents people from buying digital services, right? So this is one of the things. There's another one, which is the quality of the internet that people have access to, or the amount of the data that they get in their mobile data plans. That's another one. So all those things, they make it a little different and a little harder for people to monetize their digital services, especially when we talk about mobile in those regions, right? There's also things related to localization. There's a lot of people in the world who don't speak English or who don't speak another language, right? So when you take some like an international blockbuster and you don't properly localize it, not only in terms of culture and language, but also in terms of price, right? I mean, we're talking about emerging markets. People usually don't have the same pockets as people in well-developed countries. So sure. All those things play a very important role in monetizing content for those regions. So I guess that those are a few of the most important ones, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rodrigo. Christian, how about your thoughts? Biggest differences here?
Yeah, I guess obviously, I mean, my angle is mostly related to payment, and it's probably not everything. There's many other influence around. And I kind of agree with Rodrigo. I mean, the capacity of accessing network and data is obviously very important, mostly if we're talking mobile. But there is a number of other parameters when it comes to payment and when it comes also to taxation. When you have, I mean, obviously, I mean, I wouldn't say that then the first logical steps is automatically to have your games, if it's mobile games, present in Google Play, for example, if you're targeting Google audience or Android audience. But we see often that it's not necessarily the only way people are doing now. I mean, if we kind of see a little bit how the distribution was before the mobile world of games, I mean, we had a lot of influences and money injections or the publisher, especially big publisher, to control somehow their distributions and how they were controlling that. And they always had, even let's say before Steam, trying to have distributor with mayorista or like wholesaler that they could control better their games. Then how do they control the revenue they have from a Steam flow or from different? Well, in mobile, we're talking Google or Apple, and they became the big distributor somehow, or the big channels of sales. But I think it's important, and more, I mean, we obviously see that with some big guys, Epic and other battles that are bigger in press than the audience we're gonna have today. But obviously, we see that there's an influence here, and it's important to see as a publisher, when are you ready, or how can you at least do a piece outside of this ecosystem, or how or what can you do? Whether it's going to be through alternative subscription systems, such as Rodrigo company or others, but it's also how can you drive the emergence of a number of top-up page. We see that on other regions, Southeast Asia, for example, and how we can monetize that. I was astonished when I saw like recently some publisher already doing business, and this is a particular case in Brazil. They are already doing, obviously for years, a business with Google, and then suddenly Google just send them a quick notice saying, okay, now the 30% tax on Google revenue is going to be imputable to their revenue. So immediately they get not 30% cut, but 39% cut. So, you know, now when you're talking that you are not at 30, which was already a lot, but at close to 40%, it makes a big difference. So I think that, yeah, that's a very big difference compared to probably US or Europe, where it's a little bit more like normalized environment when it comes to taxation, for example.
You're on mute, Jason.
I totally am. Wow. Moderator fail here. I do think you appreciate that, Christian. And I do want to come back to taxation kind of towards the end of our discussion. So I do want to talk more about that. But you brought up Apple and Google. Obviously, you know, with mobile games being the largest games market in the world, right? Especially from a revenue perspective. I mean, it blew everybody else out of the water right now. Most people are monetizing with Apple and Google. But what about for Latin America? What are the other real main monetization strategies outside of just Google and Apple monetization? What's working for developers?
Yeah, so so I guess that's pretty much where players like Bimobi, like my company, they come in, right? You have several other ways to distribute content besides Google Play and App Store and iOS App Store. So, for example, what we do at Bimobi, we have a very, I think it's a very beautiful solution, right? So what we do is we have these partnerships with mobile carriers, right? We're present in most of the countries in Latin America. And what we do is we have the subscription-based store that is communicated, sold, charged, and offered all through the same channel, which is the user's mobile device. And we target specifically Android users because they're the majority of the world, and specifically when we talk about emerging markets, they're definitely the biggest population, the biggest audience. So how do we bypass the difficulties that we see in those markets, right? If you take a look at the charts of top downloads and top revenues for Android, for the Android applications, games or not, you'll see that in terms of downloads, emerging markets are always in the top. And in terms of revenues, they're never there. Or you have like one country in the top 10. So basically there's a big gap, right? There's a lot of people downloading titles, not a lot of people paying for them, and for all the reasons that we already mentioned, right?
Sure.
No bank accounts, restricted data plans, and all those things. So what we do is we have these partnerships with mobile carriers, and for example, for most of the countries and most of the carriers with which we have partnerships in place, we can zero rate the download of that content from our store. So we bypass one of the difficulties. The second thing we do is we localize the price, right? So I understand that many players, many content developers in the world, they try not to, or they tend not to localize their prices, maybe because of fear of that people will somehow access other, another country's app store and will download a game from that app store and pay less than they would pay in their original countries. Maybe because they simply don't do that. They don't know how to do it, or don't think the effort is will compensate. But we also do that. We also localize the price of the content so the price of the whole solution, right? The price of the store, the subscription price. And then we have these people paying through their mobile phone bills. So if they are postpaid users, there will be a charge in their bill. If they're prepaid users, then we are going to take some money out of their let's call it an account, right? People need to top up in order to use their mobile phones. So it takes some money out of that specific pocket. So we bypass most of the difficulties, right? Price localization, the data plans, the payment methods, and the payment schemes as well. Sometimes you'll have people charging a lot of money for like a monthly subscription, or they will charge you a lot for like a one-shot thing. While with us, with other, there are other players doing the same thing, right? They're trying to do the same as we do. You can actually pay for a period of time, paying less for that, actually using it as much as you want, pretty much like a Netflix or a Spotify, but then with the mobile apps that you want to use. So there are other possibilities outside of Google Play and App Store. And the good thing is that it's 100% incremental revenues, right? We're targeting a different audience. I'm targeting people who wouldn't be able to actually buy those services straight from Google Play. Therefore, I'm targeting a new audience and bringing incremental revenues to all these content providers. So there are solutions. Not only one company doing that. There are a few. I think it's actually a very, very interesting model, because it helps people to get money out of places that usually would be very challenging.
Absolutely. That's it. That's an interesting strategy. I like that. Christian, what about you? What have you found as far as other monetization strategies specific to Latin America outside of the big ones?
I would again agree with Rodrigo. I think subscriptions or derivative subscriptions channel linked to the carrier is most probably a promising channel, as they own the mobile, and we see a number of telco companies are trying to open their own like game arcades or subscription-based services. But when it comes to changing the way your game is working, it's also sometimes complicated. So you may think about also that into the game strategy, or how you build your games is how you can monetize it. Obviously, if it's subscription possibilities exist or not. What we see a lot is some publisher amongst the big guys, and I will take an example I know very well because we are supporting and helping them, and they are extremely known in Latin America, which is Free Fire from Garena. Okay. And Free Fire is using a way to actually benefit from the best from what they can get with Google, and they have a strong partnership, as you can imagine, with Google. But they also develop their own monetization through their own top-up page, or using external top-up page. And for anyone just understanding what is a top-up page, well, it's a web page that allow you to input your user ID and buy some whatever, coins, diamonds, virtual currency, in-game currency, and being credited into the game. So obviously, I mean, most of the game publisher, when you start talking with that, is there, whoa, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be banned on Google. Come on, it's too risky for me. I'm going to lose my game. Well, no, you won't. But there is a way of doing it. There is rules. You cannot do anything with Google. That's clear. There is a lot of precise definitions of what you can do and cannot do. So you cannot promote alternative payment within the Google Play environment, as well as sometimes outside. But nothing prevents you to make your own marketing actions to promote the capacity of this game or these assets that you own to be promoted outside of Google ecosystem. And when you do so, you're not forced to have a payment made by Google. When we see, I'll take an example now, and this is now not necessarily on Free Fire, but generally with all the games we see. Colombia, for example, is really booming and growing right now, although it doesn't reach size of Brazil for sure, but it's a really interesting market. And we see like 80% of the purchase is made in cash. Well, 80%, 80, that's it. If you don't have the payment provider being behind associated to that, whoever you choose, you're just out of the market. I mean, people cannot access your game. So it can be fine, they're gonna play and make the nice 3 first level, but they won't progress by paying whatever mechanic you have inside because they cannot. So it's as simple as that. I'm coming back also to the localization of price. I mean, Rodrigo insists on that, but I will too. I mean, it's super important. I mean, you need to understand that some of your players, I mean, they didn't travel the world necessarily and have habits of how much is euro, dollar, or whatever other currency, British pound. And honestly, they don't give a shit. It's not their wealth. I mean, it's, you know, they want their currency. You want to talk with them with what it's coming to them. And so it is important to make the effort of localizing the price. And if you think about that, 2 criteria, look, you have a lot of cash payments and you have a price point which is localized. Well, you need to be a little bit clever on the pricing because maybe you can end up to some pricing that actually the people cannot pay in a store. Well, because the cashier cannot give them the change because the coins or the note doesn't exist for that change. It sounds ridiculous, but yes, it's important. You need to be well advised on that end. So ask your, even your player, I mean, contact some of your players in these countries. They will be crazy to help you and say, oh yeah, the good price will be this, that, because I have this, I can do that, or it's easy because we all have a lot of coins of whatever, 5 peso or whatever it is. So important of localization is not just making the currency right, but it's also making the price right. And Rodrigo said, yes, some are afraid because they could see kind of a cannibalization. So, okay, now everybody is going to jump and buy in Peru. Well, guys, stop with that. It doesn't happen, okay? And if it really happened, come on, you have a good problem to fix, okay? It means that people are ready to pay for your content and they are finding the cheapest way. Fine, let's address that demand. And so I don't see that as something that should be blocking you. I agree, sometimes it could be complicated. If the multi-currency hasn't been thought at the beginning, then it can be kind of an hurdle or barrier here. But talk with your payment partner. I mean, some payment partner can do this localization of price for you. So basically, you will always send to the payment platform a price in USD, for example, but then they convert it. So it's not ideal because the user doesn't see it originally in the currency. But at the end, at the moment of payment, yes, he does understand that well. He clearly, it talks to him. And make yourself the comments. I mean, think about some value in other currency that you don't necessarily have. I don't know. Who knows exactly how much is 20 Turkish lira? Well, if you're Turk, you know. But if you're not, no way, you know,
No.
you need to go check. So anyway, what maybe I will insist on as also difference is the way that payment evolve. And I talk largely about cash, but it's not just cash. Now we see the wallets and the new generations of instant payments really growing up. And obviously this growth of this evolution is different country by country. Latin America is I remember Anna Late from Microsoft saying that about Latam, but it's like a condominium. You all want to leave or perceive that you live there because you have the nice stuff around, but actually they're all different, okay? It's not because you're in the same condominium that you're the same family. And so it's a lot of different family, and the wallet's importance is growing differently. Obviously, Brazil is extremely pushed by heavy concurrence. You have the PagBank, Nubank, and others jumping into the game. PicPay is getting big too. Whether in Colombia, you may have a lot of different wallet, but maybe not the same in competition. So it's interesting and it's growing. Probably one major impact of that is going to be the instant payment. So now with all those wallets, you're going to have some capacity of basically flashing a QR code and getting the confirmation immediately on your mobile. So you're just going to shift from app. So you're in the game, you're going to come to a payment page. It will trigger automatically the opening of your wallet or banking app, ask your confirmation, bingo, you're back with your credit. So you see that now we are not in the same kind of experience of, oh, now I need to pay, where is my card, or what is my number, oh shit, I lost my game time or whatever. Completely different. It's going to be very fast. So that's something you need to think also of integrating into your world.
Okay, I appreciate that. No, it's good. And you kind of touched on the next topic that I wanted to talk about. So if you had anything else to add, I'd like you to add that, Christian. But I mean, really, what is the biggest difference in Latin America and Brazil compared to the rest of the world when it comes to payment methods? I mean, is it radically different? I mean, you mentioned some payment methods actually that I've never heard of before. So clearly there's some difference. And 80% of all transactions are cash. I mean, how does a publisher in the Netherlands really speak to the Brazilian player in terms of available payment methods? And then I'm going to come back to you, Rodrigo, after this.
Just for the record, 80% is in Colombia. It's not.
Oh, Colombia. Sorry, my bad.
If you consider the entire regions, we're probably more around 35% cash-based. Still, it's important, but not
still a lot.
Such as Colombia. Well, guys, I think there's you will know more on the talks given later with Francisca from our company. She's detailing more about the payment style. But yeah, it's in Borg Compra, we provide 140 payment methods just in Latam. So it gives you an understanding of the variety of payments, whether it's going to be bank transfer, cash-based, wallet, OXXO payment in Mexico. You can go in 7-Eleven. You can go in Caixa de Lotericas in Brazil. I mean, it's also installments. I mean, it's a lot of variety here, and you need to address that. Don't see that as a complexity. I mean, it's not your job. It's not you as a game publisher that you need to do 140. You have some guys aggregating those payment methods. Yes, it's costful, but at the end, what do you want? Having access to a market or not? Those companies, they're going to make the processing locally. They're going to make your user accessing that. They're going to, most of the time, help you on the clearance of tax or understanding of tax. And then they're going to get these cash back to your country, whether you're in UK, in Hong Kong, or in US, Europe. At the end, they're doing the job for you to collect this money. So yes, it's different. We're not talking a basic interchange for my subscription, such as my 1.7 or 0.6 in Europe. Yeah, it's different, but they are making a different job. I mean, you still call them payment provider, but actually they're doing a very different job.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, Christian. I appreciate that. Rodrigo, same thoughts on this subject, to payment methods.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with what Christian said. Cash, even though he said 80% of transactions are made in cash in Colombia, and I didn't know that, it's an astonishing number. In Brazil, it's still super relevant too. Not sure if that is a common feature for Uber in other countries as well, but here in Brazil, you can pay Uber with cash, right? You can order an Uber, yeah, and pay with cash. So we have all those methods that Christian mentioned, right? You can pay in lotéricas, you can pay in all, you can actually pay, for example, in supermarket cashiers and all those things. So usually, especially when you come from a well-developed country, you're set a small number of solutions, right? I mean, everyone, well, most of the people have access to credit cards, most of the people have access to bank accounts. And that's simply not the reality of emerging markets. So you need to come up with solutions to actually target people where they are, right? And most of them are not online 100% of the time, okay? So you need to address that somehow. Specifically for Bemobi, what we do is the carrier billing, right? People might not have a TV at home, but they will have a mobile phone, right? The penetration of mobile phones is gigantic. So that's our method of choice, at least today. And basically we charge people using that. And then we transfer the money back to our partners, then again, wherever they are. Obviously, there are several other methods. We have tried, we have played a little with different things. So far for us, because of our whole model, because of the partnerships we have in place, this is the model that has worked best so far. But who knows, maybe in the future we can do something different. At this point, we're going with the carriers for now.
Yeah, and you know, if there's one thing that's constant in business, it's change, right? So I'm sure, you know, things will change. Well, very good. So kind of, you know, this brings us now to kind of our last topic, and I wanted, along with this topic, I wanted to give both of you the opportunity to talk just a little bit more about how your company specifically works with international publishers. Because again, majority of publishers, game publishers, developers, they're not in Latin America or Brazil, right? So most of your business is going to be with international publishers, developers. But it's taxes. Christian brought up the topic of taxes earlier, and you know, everyone wants to pay as little taxes as possible when possible, right? I mean, it's the, you know, without doing anything illegal, but right, if we can minimize taxes, we want to minimize taxes. So, you know, what's the best way to essentially get money from your Latin American players back out to the publishers and developers, and minimizing taxes? And then I'd love to hear just maybe a little bit about how your company specifically, you know, deals with that process or works with those international people. Christian, you could take this one first since you unmuted, and then we'll finish up with Rodrigo. If we have any time left, maybe some questions from the audience, but I think we'll probably be close to time when we're done. So
okay,
Christian,
so I think I'm gonna concentrate on a part of the question only, as again, I mean, later in this event, you have some possibilities to see more details about our company with a webinar of Francisca Rocha. And so coming back on tax, I think, sure, tax, no one likes that, but at the end, they have a reality. We also need to understand that it's part of our duty as a company when we access some populations and some countries to play by the rules. And I think that there is not much of tax optimization to be made per se. It's more choosing the framework of work you're going to have that will make you eligible to certain tax or not. and then it has all components as their differences. So if you have some important revenue in one of those countries, then maybe you need also to have a local entity. But is it necessary? What do you gain with that? What is you have some app are also needed some local funds to do their local marketings or their local actions. So it depends a lot of how you incentive also your user and how you play with that. Most of the time, the big gap is the difference between do you have a local entity or you don't have a local entity. And this is what you probably at a first stage concentrate your thought on to say, okay, is it necessary to have it? What does it bring me to have one? And then again, speaking with your payment provider, they will have the capacity or not to only do local processing with local entity, depending of their legal framework. And some others, such as Boa Compra, has the capacity to provide you with processing locally, but not necessarily through a local entity owned by yourself. And so I think this is where you should concentrate. It's changing a lot. We've seen that Argentina changed twice in a year with like massive change. Sometime it's, and for the record, so Argentina changed, Mexico changed, Colombia, Chile, Peru are changing. And so, yes, before it was like almost zero tax, but it's changing. I think those countries are also understanding that there's a lot of taxation left on the table there. So we need to adapt. Your payment provider should be able to help you with that. And yeah, that's the situation. It's important to follow a little bit that because of the change, okay? Sometimes it's a little bit crazy. I will used to say that Latin America is not for beginners. And honestly, sometimes it's tricky. Like we've been like for more than a year in Argentina with some taxations, like we're clearly linked to a list of companies. So you are in the list, you pay the tax, you're not in the list, we don't know. So if you don't know, obviously you don't pay the tax. So, you know, it sounds crazy. I mean, explain that to anyone in Europe or US, they're gonna say, what the fuck, what is the law? Well, it's the law, you know? So, I mean, you need also to read that, have, as soon as it starts to be important in your revenue, have your own legal opinion, okay? Whatever, who is telling you something, you don't care, have your legal opinions. Maybe it's gonna cost you 5 or 10K, but it's worse. That's better than having much trouble after. So as soon as your revenue is getting substantial, please have a look to that. We didn't mention anything about COVID, but obviously, I mean, no surprise. Everybody probably has read that 10 times already, but yes, it's booming, okay? Clearly, I think pa and mums are feeding the kids and the young adults with money for playing video games right now. At least we are feeding it. It's a very interesting time to enter the market because of this, because the market is full of new players. You have people that were not playing before like a year ago, and they are discovering new games, they are discovering new capacity, they are discovering, oh, I want to consume my game differently now. So subscriptions came back into the loop, etc., etc. There's a lot of change in the market. It's a good time.
Absolutely, and it's not just South America. Obviously, you know, gameplay is up everywhere, and not just in the younger populations, even in the older populations. Some people working from home now, they're like, hey, I have time to play games because I'm not commuting anymore, or whatever it might be. So, thank you. I appreciate that, Christian. Fantastic information. Rodrigo, same thoughts on taxation and you know, minimizing taxes, or you know, and obviously, of course, what Bemobi is doing in that realm.
Yeah. So yeah, as Christian said, it's kind of hard to escape that, right? We obviously have legal obligations, and it's very hard to go around that. So we obviously have fixed models in place. We have presence in most of the countries where we operate. And what we do, I mean, what we can offer, but that's not to all players. It also depends, to all partners, it also depends on where they are based. Brazil, for example, it has double taxation agreements with certain countries, right? So if I'm making money in Brazil and I'm paying part of that money to someone, I'm sending part of that money to someone in, let's say, United States, or I don't know, United Kingdom or somewhere else, if those countries have those agreements in place with Brazil, they will not be required to pay those taxes again when money gets to their country, right? So they will be not suffering double taxation both in Brazil because the money was made here and when they actually acknowledge that income, those revenues when they get to their final destinations. So this is one thing, but it's not really related to BMOB. It's actually an agreement. Countries. So if you're lucky enough to be in one of those countries with whom Brazil has those agreements in place, then fine, you're gonna save some money on taxation. Other than that, it's really hard to actually escape them. But I guess again, it's part of the business. There's not much we can do we can do about it. So we just we play along the rules and that's pretty much it, I guess.
Okay, and that makes sense given the business model. But I mean, I would say how are you working with international publishers just in general? I mean, how are they reaching out to you? How does that relationship look? That kind of thing.
So most of our partners they're not from Latam. They're not from Brazil. They're not from Latam. They are through international. They are from Europe, North America, Asia. The whole process of receiving titles, publishing them, and all that, it's pretty much almost automatic. We have a platform with which they can interact. We create an account, they upload their titles, they upload their marketing assets. We test it. We make sure everything is fine, that the content behaves according to what we expect, which means no in-app purchases, no ads, no external links, all those things. Users are already paying a fee, a recurrent fee, right? So they should not be allowed to spend anything else, right? And then we basically start charging users when they subscribe, right? It's a subscription service. Either they use it or not, pretty much like Netflix. You can watch a movie or 10 movies and you're paying the same thing, right? We charge users, we collect that money, and then we share that money based on usage events, right? So the more usage events your title has with us, the more money you're going to receive. It's not really related to time. We count unique daily usage events. So basically daily active users, unique daily active users, right? And then we basically divide money by the total of daily active users we had in a single month. And then we get to the value of a one usage event, and then we apply a revenue share with those partners. And then basically we make payments, we transfer money to them using the regular bank channels, right? So we don't use other tools. We know there are some, like if I'm not mistaken, Easy Transfer and others that could help to send money to other countries in different fashions, but probably because of regulations, we stay with the more classic players. We go with the banks at this point.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Awesome. Thanks for that, Rodrigo. And then Christian, same thing to you. Just, I mean, how are you guys working with international publishers? How do they interact with you? And that'll be kind of my last question to you. And then I think we might have a few minutes if there's any questions from the audience. So.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit the same as Rodrigo. We work with some publisher from Latam, but a lot of them are outside Latin America, and they're using our services to being able to expose their game and having payment in Latin America. And so we have set up different offices and account manager. I personally am located in Portugal, which sounds a little bit different than Brazil. But yes, it is. But it's also very convenient to have all the conversations we may have in different time frame, whether it's from Latin America, from US, or from China. And so it helps us having these kind of center locations, but we have also account management capacity, whether it's in US or directly in China. These are basically the most of the publisher we work with are Europe, US, or Asian location. Obviously, we do have some relation with a lot of partner in Latin America, but that is very well covered from Brazil, and this is what we do for now. We don't really suffer from that. So I think what we are suffering right now is that we used to have more events, whether it's China Joy, whether it's Gamescom, and different show like this. That was for us obviously an opportunity to touch those game publisher, to expose what we're doing, etc. And that has changed also. So I feel like it's it's a little bit more difficult for us to have relationship, I will say, amongst the recent months. Everybody is very busy because the game are booming. But on the other hand, we don't have all this show that we were used together with all the folks of the industry.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Christian, Rodrigo, and actually, I don't think we're going to have enough time for questions. We have about 2 minutes here, but essentially, what I'm gathering from all this, and the common theme, is international publishers really need to work with one of you guys if they really want to do business with players in Latin America and Brazil. So I think that having that local partner, that's someone who really understands what's going on and it can be that buffer. I see that as being very important. So I really appreciate both of you being here, sharing of your knowledge, your expertise, and I feel like anybody here who's hoping to do business there has really gotten a lot out of it. I know myself, this is the second event that we've done that's really focused on Latin America, and I'm still learning new stuff. So I'm loving it. So really appreciate both of you being here. Rodrigo, thank you for being here. Christian as well. I know we're gonna see Boa Compra at a couple of these other events, and we of course are very grateful for Boa Compra being our sponsor for this event. But yeah, would love to have you guys back again anytime. So
sure. Bye-bye.
My
Awesome.
pleasure, Jason. Christian,
Hey.
thank you very much for the invitation. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Same here. Same here. Pleasure to have both of you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the event. Enjoy the matchmaking opportunities. Meet people. Do business. Make it happen. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.